What is up, guys and gals? It's me, Garrett, back with another C# studs tutorial. This time we're going to be talking about arrays. So glad you could join us today. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So what is an array? An array is an object that holds many values. It can hold integers, strings, doubles, basically anything you want it to. And there's one-dimensional versus two-dimensional arrays. So a one-dimensional array can just house one set of data. So like say I have a list of prices of things I want to buy at a grocery store. I'm going to have a big long list of prices, and I want to store them all in this array. That's what that's for. I can do like an average price out of those. I can sum up how much it's going to cost me to buy all those things. And then with a 2D array, it actually holds two sets of data. So say I have the same grocery list, so I know I want to buy all these things. This is what they all cost, and I also have how many of each one I want to buy. That's pretty useful because then you can just multiply your however many you want to buy with the price, and then add all those up, and you get the total cost that you're gonna have to spend at the grocery store. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into code here. So here I've defined an integer array. So this is kind of the format of an array. So it's int, the brackets, int example. So this is your variable name, whatever you want to call it, equals new int with the brackets again. And here I went ahead and just defined the size right here. This is what I'm storing in that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe that was from our last video. And then here I also did a string one. So this is string. Same thing with the brackets here. String example, this is our variable name, equals new string, brackets again, and I went ahead and just stuck stuff in there. And then here I've actually defined a two-dimensional array, so int with comma in here. That's saying, okay, I'm going to have one spot and then I'm going to have two spots. This is the array name, equals new int, and then however many slots I want to have. So this will actually have 0, 1, 2. I'm sorry, it'll have two spaces in here, so 0 and 1. And this would have 0, 1, 2, 3. So that would have 4 spots in there. So those are that's how big the array is. That's how many values you can input into that. So I'm going to go ahead and do some coding here. We have just a generic form here. So we have a button. It's called button1 label in our form. So we're going to find the sum of this here array. So in order to do that, our array is an example. So we're going to do a for loop. So for int I equals 0. Also, another cool thing to note, your arrays always start at 0. I've seen a lot of students just go straight to 1 because, you know, it's like the first place and the second place and third place. No, that's not how code works. You always start at 0. So start at 0. And if we want to sum the array, we can just say it's less than int example length. That's our upper bound, right? And we want it to increment each step by 1, so we're just going to do I++. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say, actually I'm going to define a int sum. So this is what our sum is going to be stored in. And every time we loop through this, we want to add whatever is inside of our example, this array here, we want to add to sum. So int example, and we're going to say I. So what it's going to do is it's going to add start 0, so it's going to loop through. So the first slot's going to start there. So let's say, okay, 1, add 1 to sum, loops back up here, adds 2 to the sum, so it becomes 3, and then what, 6, 10, 15. So it should say 15. Excuse me. And then we are going to put that into a label. We're going to say sum, and since it's an integer, we have to convert it to a string. Sum.toString. Alright. Let's go ahead and check and see if that works. And looks good. So that's how you do a sum. Now we're going to do an average. So I'll give you a second, take a look at that code. If you need to copy it down, that's cool. You can pause the video now because I'm about to delete it. Goodbye, sum. Alright, now we're going to do an average. I shouldn't have deleted it. I'm going to have to type all that again. So let's do int sum equals 0. Again, this is our average code. We're going to say for int I equals 0. This is the exact same thing as last time. I'm not exactly sure why I deleted it. Int example length plus, we want to increment by 1 each time. Sum plus equals example I. Good. So what this does is it adds all of it back up to sum again, like we did last time. But then we need to find the average of that. So to find the average, right, we learned this back in like elementary school. Add up all the values and then divide by however many there are. So sum divided by example.length. So that's what we're going to do here. Apologize for the noise. So it'll be sum divided by int example length. Of course, we're going to have to add some parentheses around this, and then we're also going to have to say toString because that is an integer. So there's that. So this one, let's see, we got 15 for the sum, and there's 5 numbers, so the average should be 3. Boom. This code works for however many items you have in the array. This will add them up all the way to the end, and this will divide them up by however many you have. So there's that. Let's go and delete that. So now we're going to move on to max and min. So let's say you have this array here, array, and you want to find out what's the biggest number in here. So we're going to do another for loop. For loops are really useful in coding. I use them all the time. You'll use them all the time in any computer class you take, probably. Alright, so we're going to have another loop in here. And also what we're going to do, let's do this out and I'll explain it here. So what I did here was, this is kind of the assumption that you make for every single one of these. It just makes it easy. So what I did here was I assumed that the biggest integer in this example array is the first slot. That's just kind of what you do in this. So we can actually change this to 1. And then what we're going to do is, as it loops through the array, we're going to say if what we looped through, so if our int example in the current index that we're at as I is greater than what we first said, greater than biggest, then our new biggest is going to be equal to the current example. Then we're going to set our label 1 text equal to biggest. Let's run that, and then I will explain that a little bit more. Our biggest is 5, and that is correct in this array. So basically what this does, again, so it sets the first value equal to the biggest, so that's just our initial assumption, and it loops through the entire array, checks to see if whatever other array portion of this, if it's greater than biggest, or biggest one that we already said, then it's going to set that equal to. So in this case, it starts at 0, so it starts at 1, and then it checks if 1 is greater than 2, if 2 is greater than 1, because our 1 is biggest currently. So if 2 is greater than 1, which it is, it's going to set our 2 equal to biggest. So that's 2, loops back through, 3 is bigger than 2, so 3, 4, 5, and it stops, so 5 is the biggest one. And of course this works the opposite as well. we can change this to minimum. We're going to say, okay, our minimum is that. And it's basically the same thing, except we check to see if it's less than. And let's go ahead and run that code. Should be 1. Very good. So that's how you do both of those. Feel free to copy this code. It's great to use for programs that you have in class. And again, here is a 2D. I know we didn't really get into that, but I just want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys subscribe, become a member of the C# Studs community, and we'll see you next time.